Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. The continued reviews of the Obamalisk and the big grand opening fete of the Obamas. All the stars were out. None commenting on the unpaid contractors and subcontractors, though, like we discussed on Friday with Mike Owen, plumbing contractor. He's owed $4 million, and he said on Friday, told us on the show that he's at near the bottom of the totem pole in terms of contractors who were owed in the millions of dollars by Team Obama. Some, he said, tens of millions of dollars. And you had the president of the Black Contractors Association, Omar Sharif, no relation, saying never seen anything like it. And at least a couple of MBEs, minority business enterprises, black-owned contracting businesses, have already filed for bankruptcy. Right. And so you got this perspective from Sunny Hostin on that show featuring the man-hating shrews, The View. Yeah, I need to be more specific. That's why I gave you the title. There's a couple of shows like that. And the reason I play Sunny Hostin's review of Obamalisk and the wonders of it is because that's where the activewear Antifa in DuPage County get their news. So I just want you to sort of understand, who you're dealing with and where they're getting their information when you run across these folks at a Starbucks, say, in downtown Hinsdale.
And I think if you also look at the way that he has done this presidential center, it is in a historic neighborhood, Jackson Park, which is a neighborhood that needed to be developed. That's a neighborhood that has been underserved for so long. You think about it, it's going to be open daily, free of charge for children and adults. It's for everyone to enjoy. And then the centerpiece is this 225-foot tall tower. And this is what is on it. It says, "You are America. The single most powerful word in our democracy is the word we. We the people. We shall overcome. Yes, we can. Oh, what a glorious task we are given to continually try to improve this great nation of ours." That is the message of the library. We can. Yes, we can. We're coming together. He's setting the tone with his very presidential center, and that is why Trump will never be the president that he was, or quite frankly, the man that he is.
Powerful. Jackson Park is an area that needed to be redeveloped? Huh. I mean, I'm not going to quibble with noted Chicago historian and officer of the court, Sunny Hostin, of course, but I had no idea. For more on this and other topics, please be joined by Paul Vallas, Senior Policy Advisor at the Illinois Policy Institute, who writes weekly for the Chicago Contrarian and, of course, former CEO of CPS and candidate for Chicago Mayor. Paul, Jackson Park was in need of redevelopment, and now the wonders of the Obama Library. People are going to be able to go there and shoot hoops for free, Paul.
Well, first of all, the charges, I think, are on par or exceed the charges of all the other presidential libraries. At least that's what I've read. But Jackson Park is like Vatican City. It's like a city within a city. It's, Jackson Park is in the university. I mean, the University of Chicago, that's their stronghold there.
And Hyde Park, is Hyde Park a community in need of redevelopment? Does that fall into disrepair?
If there's one community and not in disrepair and one community not in need of development, it's Hyde Park. Also, they've taken some very, very, very valuable park property away to build a museum in that location. And of course, the city's going to have to pay well north of $100 million just for infrastructure repairs. So obviously it is going to cost. Look, the president was allegedly a community organizer on the South Side. I grew up in the Roseland area, was born in Roseland Hospital. I would have hoped that you could have located the library, maybe on the old Pullman manufacturing site, hundreds of acres that have never been developed. And anchor, if you really wanted to anchor a community, that could have been a community that you could have anchored. But obviously, they took the one area of the city that didn't need development at all, and they just have stuck this huge monolith right smack dab in the middle of Jackson Park. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is in Chicago. That's a phrase that pops up again and again. Speaking of it is what it is in Roseland, another mass shooting in Chicago this year, 13 people shot on Friday night. Thankfully, it appears, I know one was reported in critical condition, but it appears all the victims are going to survive. But here again, the one thing we need to do, though, I mean, we're close. We just need a few more safe social spaces like the one Brandon Johnson referenced at the Art Institute, and then this ugliness will disappear. That's what I'm led to believe.
Well, look, Chicago, the new normal for Chicago is to continue to lead the country in not only shootings and attempted murders, but also in mass shootings, and also the number of children who have been shot and killed and wounded. Chicago's got to. This is the 30th mass shooting this year. The 30th mass shooting this year.
Yeah, but crime is down.
That's right, and crime is down. And of course, murders are up 6%. Chicago, again, is leading the nation with murders this year at 206. And, no attention drawn to the fact that, again, Chicago is leading the nation in school-age children shot and killed. There have been 74 children shot already in Chicago this year, 15 of whom were killed. So, the mayor's going to talk about safe spaces and violence interrupters and probably throw in a little of his affordable housing jargon and all the things that he's doing to get at the institutional undercurrents that are the reason for violent crime. The bottom line is they still haven't gotten a handle on things, and another mass shooting is just an example. Let me also point out that and it should be very alarming. They solved very few of these mass shooting cases. I think it was the Sun-Times that did a story about a year ago where they looked at mass shootings over a period of like 6 years, and mass shootings that had resulted in about 100 people being shot and many of them killed. And I think the arrest rate was like 1% or 2%. Mm-hmm. So these shootings are occurring, and they're not solving the crimes.
On the others, on the criminal justice system, I mean, the other side of it, not police, but prosecutors and judges. So, Chief Judge Beach, how are we doing on the electronic monitoring program? Another story over the weekend. Man robbed FedEx driver while on electronic monitoring, according to his ankle bracelet GPS. Another master criminal. But the point is, the electronic monitoring program that Charles Beach said he was going to get a handle on. They, a couple of weeks back, celebrated themselves for only having 8% of those on electronic monitoring go rogue and disappear, and they didn't know where they were. 8% of 3,000 people, 244 people roaming around who are inclined to violent crime is problematic, not certainly in the best interest of public safety. So, what about the job in your assessment that Burke and Beach are doing on the other side of the criminal justice system?
Well, I think Burke is doing an excellent job. Beach, the jury is still out. The mere fact that they're maintaining this electronic monitoring system and they're not really being aggressive about at least trying to severely limit who is on electronic monitoring. And I mean people put on electronic monitoring who have committed violent crimes. I mean, the bottom line is, I think the jury is still out, but the jury isn't out on Burke. I mean, the murder rate has declined up until
well, you just said it's up 6% this year, year over year.
Yeah, let me point out that post-COVID, the murder rate dropped across the nation, as we well know. Chicago's decline was half that of the nation. Since Burke has gotten elected, the murder rate in Chicago has fallen to the levels that they have fallen nationally, and that's because Burke, if you look at all the statistics The jail population has returned to the pre-COVID level. So clearly, she has been much more aggressive than Fox in keeping dangerous criminals off the street, which is why, Dan, she is being attacked, why they're accusing her of not going after ICE agents. I mean, why they're accusing her of having abandoned Fox's policies of, releasing individuals for alleged police misconduct, despite the fact that they've never had to offer any proof that they've been innocent. I mean, the criminal industrial complex in the city has enriched themselves with hundreds of millions of dollars in legal settlements for individuals who were released from Fox and then given certificates of innocence, even though they've demonstrated they've offered no proof that they're innocent. Recently, Marcel Brown just got a $30 million settlement. He was incarcerated for being on a ride-along that resulted in somebody getting killed, and he got released. He got a certificate of innocence by Fox, and then he ended up getting a $30 million settlement in court.
No, I mean, I concede the point, but I mean, the bar couldn't have been lower than Kim Fox. So I concede the point, except for this. Is it just, a little bit more competence and common sense, but it's not really the system change that's required. And I cite Eileen O'Neill Burke's statement that she supports the Safety Act. I mean, if you support the Safety Act in its current constitution or its previous iteration or any proposed reformed iteration, then in my mind, you are either being cynical and taking a political position you really don't believe, or you are not someone who is going to advance the flag for public safety in a comprehensive way.
Yeah, well, I think that's more about rhetoric and politics because they are going after her. They're already working to undermine her. Tony Preckwinkle and company, they control her budget at the end of the day. But when it comes to what she's doing on domestic violence or what she's doing in prosecutions, the crime on the CTA, or for that matter, just the mere fact that literally in a year the jail population has returned to the pre-COVID levels, I think that in itself shows that she is trying to do the job. She's just trying to keep a low profile. And I think the fact that the trial lawyers are coming after, because all these protests over ICE, they're all being funded and orchestrated by the trial lawyers that are out there making hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, right.
So I think she has done a far better job, but at the end of the day, she certainly is. I think she's trying to keep a low profile or give them a narrow profile to come after politically.
By the way, just on the Obama library, I got this text from my friend Amy Jacobson, our mutual friend. It's $30 to get into Obamalisk on and get in. Tuesdays are free, but you have to show an ID. Show an ID! Oh, heavens. To prove that you're a Chicago resident. And they're sold out until November, so I'm not going to be able to shoot hoops there with Ali G until November. That's unfortunate, but we appreciate the update from Amy. So, Paul, speaking of Ali G and Susana Mendoza and George Cardenas, these Ali G is not formally out, but he's moving in that direction. And the other names mentioned, the lobbyist John Kelly and I don't know, the whole Maria Pappas, the candidates that are making noise about running for mayor or who have already announced for mayor. I know they're not monolithic, but do you see anyone in the field, actual or suggested, that is going to take the city in a substantial positive direction, as opposed to the whole change on the outside to protect continuity on the inside that we've been doing for so long?
Well, not yet. And again, I really haven't seen them say anything of substance so far. Of course, more are going to enter the race, and who knows if Johnson will even run. He'll take his marching orders from Stacey Davis Gates. But I will tell you, Rahm Emanuel took a pause from his bicycle tour in New Hampshire. I put a nice piece on Rahm Emanuel and the Contrarian to come to town to talk to my donors, not about his election his race for mayor, but actually to talk to my donors about why they should not support me if I run for mayor again, or why they should not support me if I run for school board president. Now, of course, I have no intention of running for either, but the mere fact that he would be particularly obsessed with me was kind of really strange.
Well, what did he say? Why shouldn't they?
The usual stuff. He tries to do too much, or he's all over the board. The usual things. When you're trying to tackle multiple issues, which means when you're trying to tackle the right issues, and they can't fault you or they can't attack you on your integrity, they then try to say that he's unfocused or he's undisciplined and, that crap. And that stuff I've always faced all my life. But the mere fact that he would pause and come out here to talk about me, that's part of the Michael Sachs crew. I mean, they're going to try to handpick the next mayor of the city of Chicago. I told everybody that, just replacing Johnson is not going to do it.
Right.
We need someone who's going to be a change agent. I do want to point out that whoever is the next mayor, and this is really important, Dan, I know you talked about this, whoever is the next mayor, the city is totally screwed if the Chicago Teachers Union is able to maintain control of the Chicago Public School Board in the school board elections. And because at the end of the day, the city, when I was the school chief, we were provided not a dime in additional subsidies from the city. We balanced our budgets on our own. You remember that era. Today, the Chicago Public Schools receives an additional $1.3 billion from the city. The city can't balance its own budget because they're constantly increasing their subsidies to the Chicago Public Schools. And, of course, the Chicago Public Schools are an absolute disaster. They're working overtime to even destroy public school choice, like charters and magnet schools. The union is a political organization, and the schools are just their bank. So at the end of the day, if you don't dislodge the control of the Chicago Teachers Union from the school board, the city there's no way you're going to be able to even begin to address the critical financial issues that the city's facing.
When Rahm came to talk to your donors, taking a break from his bicycle tour, he wasn't wearing those tight bicycle shorts, was he?
No, he's had the good sense of not doing that.
Oh, thank God. Yeah.
Absolutely. But he was an absolute disaster as mayor.
Yes.
And I really encourage people to read my contrarian piece because, I felt since Rahm decided to once again make me the focus, I would kind of return the favor.
Who do you think is the worst possible choice that Chicagoans can make from the field as constituted or projected? In my mind, it's, to your point in the standard of what has to happen, it's Giannoulias. He's the worst possible candidate you could choose if you want to see the city improve, because he will be it's just going to go back to the sort of the user-friendly era of different rent-seeking, contrived institutional interests. He's, in my view, a complete mimbo, another guy who just wants to wear the sash like our governor, and because that gives him self-actualization. That to me is the worst choice you could make because he's such a phony.
Well, I'll tell you what, what I'm going to do during the course of this race. We've been through the Urban Center, which is the organization we created post-election, post my election. Obviously, we helped Burke get elected, and we worked very hard to try to defeat Tony Preckwinkle. And surprise, surprise, right? 3 months after the primary, Tony Preckwinkle announces we have a $550 million budget at the county level, and property taxes are going to be the billings are going to be delayed again. Well, so we've been working overtime, but we've been talking to every one of the announced and unannounced candidates who clearly have floated there to really, try to talk sense to them and try to tell them what the issues are and what the pathways are to addressing those problems and those needs. I, at some point, as well as the individuals who are involved and my donors, at some point will come out and we'll identify who we feel is the strongest, most substantive candidate, and and go after the weak candidates that are out there. I'm not prepared to say that now because I'm still having a conversation with each and every one of them. But at the right time, I won't hesitate to do that. You've never known me to be shy about offering my opinion.
Paul Vallas, Senior Policy Advisor at Illinois Policy Institute, writes weekly for the Chicago Contrarian, former CEO of CPS and candidate for mayor. Paul, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Have a great week.
You too. And you join us on the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
And now it's time for the Cat's Corner.
This is John Katzmatidis with the Cat's Corner. I want to get something off my chest. We have too many professional politicians. I go back to that original movie, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.